host. And today I have the most technologically advanced guest I think I've ever had on the show. I'm totally kidding. We just had a blast getting everything live and going here. But I have Lauren Donahue on, and she is a freaking rock star. So do me a favor, share this out with everybody you know, put it on all social media platforms, and let's get a bunch of people in here to hear Lauren's story and absorb some of her amazing energy. So stay with us. We will be right back. And we're back. We're back. Let me bring Lauren in. Lauren, you'll have to unmute your microphone. But Lauren, welcome to Breakthrough Walls.
Thank you so much. And thank you for helping me not be such a technology dinosaur. Glad we could get that all sorted out.
That was fun. That was fun. Hey, you know what? As long as you don't give up, everything's fine. So,
yeah, we had a breakthrough before we even started.
Right? It's amazing. So listen, I started this, I don't know, almost 6 years ago. I started this show, and it's been amazing. I started this really to help myself for selfish reasons. And it worked. I'm like, if I hear enough other people talk about how they got through the crap and made it, then maybe I'll figure it out. And I did. And it's been so helpful for just, I don't know if it's millions of people, but certainly hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people have benefited from this. So I'm really excited to have you on. And I want to start with you telling everybody who's watching where you were born and raised.
Oh, this is my favorite question because I love where I'm from. I'm from a very small town called Valley Center, Kansas. And I grew up there playing sports because there's not much else to do in Kansas. Although I typically say that, and my mom wants me to let everyone know there's a lot of beautiful things in Kansas. And she started taking me on road trips to show me all of the cool things. But before, I thought it was just the largest ball of twine. Now there's a few other really cool things, and it's a beautiful place to be from. And I also got to be raised by my grandparents, so I'm very grateful for that. But I come from, small town with big dreams.
Oh, that's awesome. So is that where you stayed? Like you were raised in small town Kansas?
Yes, born and raised. I was there until I was 21. So I grew up there. My grandpa coached me in pretty much every single sport that you can imagine. And I actually ended up playing basketball in college, also in Kansas. After a lot of debate on what I should do, I had some different scholarships, and I had a full ride to UNLV. And my grandpa and I sat down and had a conversation, and he was like, I'm so proud of everything that you've accomplished. And and he coached me. He was the reason I played basketball. And he's like, so if you pick one of those schools in Kansas that offered you a scholarship, I'll make sure to be at your games. And so that was it. That was all I needed to hear, because my plan wasn't to go to the WNBA, and that wasn't going to be my lifelong thing. But I knew that if I looked up in the stands and didn't see my grandpa, then it wouldn't be as exciting. So I did decide to play in Kansas. And then after that, I followed the yellow brick road from Kansas to California, and I've been here ever since.
And that was, how old were you then? 20?
I was 21. So it was like 2008, 2009. And so I've been here almost 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You were 21 when you went to California?
when I went to California.
Did you know
And
anybody?
I knew goose egg. I didn't know anybody. And
What?
that's really wild too for a small town girl who's obsessed with her family. And all I ever wanted to do was be with my family. I was there at my grandparents' every day. And then when I lived there, obviously, but I would have lunch with my mom all the time when I was in college and go for walks with them. So, and we have a pretty big family. So it
Yeah.
was a big deal. A guy from the basketball team that he was on the men's team, his sister was moving to California at the same time. So he's like, hey, you should link up with her and one of her friends from college. So we ended up getting a 3-bedroom. Mind you, it was sight unseen. We actually were already in the U-Haul driving when I pulled over to a FedEx and I signed the lease and faxed it over. And
Faxed
faxed
it.
it, faxed it over and arrived in Venice Beach, California for my first place to live. And it was
Wow.
quite the culture shock.
Venice Beach. Wow. I'll bet it was. So you
Yeah.
were, and you said you were 21, Venice
Mhm.
Beach, which I've never even been to Venice Beach. And
It's beautiful, but it's a sight to see.
yeah, I'm sure. So thank you to Mark for sharing this, by the way. Um, so, okay, you're in California, you're 21. Um, I heard that everybody, if you live in California, you're either a fruit or a nut.
Probably, maybe both.
Maybe both.
Yeah.
So you're in California and I can't even imagine that. 21 years old and you're living in California. What was your what was your what did you aspire to do in California? Were you there to be a movie star?
No, I wasn't. I hadn't even really thought about that. So the small backstory is that my real dad lived in Orange County, California. And so I knew about California. That's the only reason why, of any other places, I chose California. And since I decided to stay back in Kansas and play basketball, and I hadn't really went out to explore something new, for me in my mind, I thought I'll just go somewhere for a year and I'll check it out for a year. And then I'm sure I'm going to come home and probably do pharmaceutical sales, or one of the things that people said I'd be really good at. Like, you'd be really
Yeah,
good at this, so you should do this. But I wanted to go explore and see something. I knew what's interesting is playing sports my whole life. I didn't get to travel because we were
right.
every summer, you've got games every single day, and there just wasn't time to do that. But inside, I knew I had a very adventurous spirit, and I
Yeah,
knew I wanted to see the world. And again, coming from Kansas, you're pretty sheltered. You don't see a lot. And I didn't really grow up watching TV and things like that because, again, we
right.
just spent a lot of time outside. So I did want to go see the world. So I knew that my real dad lived in Orange County. I also didn't really have any concept of how far away things were. So I'm like, Venice Beach, cool. I'll just see my dad every day. And it's quite a drive. Like, some days it's, could be over 2 hours. And I was thinking it would be
Oh,
10 minutes.
oh my gosh.
So yeah, I thought I would be like, oh, I have somebody, to see. But anyways, what ended up happening, which I obviously didn't know at the time, is I really started losing my identity. I started spiraling. I started really like reaching and grasping for things outside of myself. And I didn't know what it was until later when I was about to move back to Kansas and someone invited me to play on their co-ed football league. And so I said yes, because I'm like, cool, sports, I know that. And what they didn't tell me is that their team was 0-70. They had never won a game. And
Oh
I'm
my.
a very competitive person.
Oh,
And our teams were typically pretty good. So when I arrived, I thought, 0-70. Wow. Okay, here we go. And guess what? We won the game. So, of
the first
course,
game you played in.
the first game, and they're like, well, you have to come back next week. And I was getting ready to move back to Kansas. So I'm like, well, yeah, of course. I can't like let you guys down. I'll be back. Yeah. I'll just
Oh
delay
my.
my, trip home and my move home. And so I kept playing and I kept playing. And then I started getting recruited by other teams in the league. They're like, come play with us. And I was like, yeah, you guys are better. I'm going to go play with you. Until
Wow.
it got to the point where I was actually building my own teams, putting my own teams together, doing the recruiting. And what I realized is I had lost my identity, but when I got that invitation, which I think is so important and key for people to hear,
Yeah.
sometimes it just takes one invitation to completely change your life. Or maybe one conversation like this one, somebody hears something that completely changes their life. And that invitation to play in that football league changed my life. And I really believe I'm still here 16 years later because of that guy. His name was Michael. And he invited me to play, and I found purpose again. And I found joy, and I found my spark and my light. And I loved recruiting. And it was only a couple of years ago, actually, that my grandma was showing me pictures of, my grandpa with all of his teams, all the teams that he coached. And I'm like, that's it. I do the same thing. I'm a recruiter of teams. And whether that's for businesses or for actual sports or for retreats, whatever we're doing, I'm
Yeah.
constantly recruiting. And he was really good at finding the best assistant coaches, the best people to be on the team, the best people to be the scorekeepers. He was just really good at that. So that was something really exciting and something that kept me in California.
That is a great story. So
Mhm.
wait, was it tackle football?
It was two-hand touch, so it was as close as you could get to tackle. There was definitely tackling happening when people are diving with two hands and pushing you down, clotheslining
Oh,
you, all the things. So I actually prefer that over flag football, and I'll
oh
tell you
my,
why. That's because just this last year, the same thing happened to me that happened to me 16 years ago. I started to lose my identity, lose purpose, not be as excited for things. And sure enough, all of a sudden, somebody invites me to play in their football league. And I probably haven't played in the football league like over a decade, right? I'm like, oh, that's another lifetime ago. But of course, I said
wow.
yes because I'm competitive still. I don't think that'll ever go away. And the same thing happened. I went, the team
Oh
wasn't
my,
the best. and and we started winning, we started doing good. And then I got recruited by the best team in the league and I was so excited. And there's a story and some lessons in this as well. A couple days before, I was
wow.
at my osteopath and I saw there was these hands and there was these hands like kind of like this, I guess if you can see. And
Yeah,
I remember seeing those type of hands at my grandmother's, and I believe they're probably Jesus's hands.
yeah.
And so I saw that, and I just got this little, oh, pay attention, that's important. Like pay attention to the hands. Then 2 days later, I was at an event and they had people pulling cards, and I'm not super into pulling cards, so I didn't know if I wanted to do it. And then I pull the card and it's just hands, and it's literally the exact same thing,
Oh
hands, that
my
says
gosh.
some things are just out of your control, something like that. Then the third one, my pastor at church did the hands, and I thought, oh, so interesting. So I go to play football, and what happens? Everyone's saying, oh my gosh, look at her hands. Oh, she's got hands, hands, right? And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm getting so much significance from my hands because people are like, oh, she's got good hands. And that's how I felt like I could be seen and noticed. Oh, people will notice me if I'm good at sports and I've got hands and I can play and things like that. And so what happens? I got a good lesson. I the first day I played for that really good team, dove to grab someone's flag, broke my finger, twisted. It was like a fractured twist. I had to have surgery. I
Oh
still
my.
can't fully bend it. This is only 3 months ago. But I was taken out. And so I felt like in that moment for me, God was like, well, who are you without your hands? Right? If you're going to get so much significance and you feel like that's the only way that you can be seen and known and loved, then let's take that away and let's see who you
Wow.
are without your hands, right? Like who you are, right? Your character is revealed in crisis. So for me,
Yeah.
that was a major crisis because that's where I was getting my purpose. So
Yeah.
it was who are you and how are you going to show up now? So there was a lot of lessons in slowing down, in being restricted from a lot of the things that bring me joy. But I really feel like in this time, I've actually found myself again.
Okay, so let me unpack this a little bit. Um, so I want to go back to when you first started playing in the football league.
hmm
Um, what are you, like 6'4", 240?
Pretty
I'm
much. Very close. That's the best guess anyone's ever had.
yours. That's hilarious. So you said that's the best guess anyone's
Yeah, no,
ever
I mean, if we're going to guess how many marbles are in the jar, you're on my team.
had. so so but I want to ask, like, okay, were you working? Did you have a job? What were you doing? Like, I'm assuming it wasn't medical sales.
No, but it actually was in somewhat of a medical field, which is interesting. When I first came out, I did apply to a bunch of the different pharmaceutical companies and things like that. And guess what? They all said yes, and they all wanted to hire me. Like, go figure, because I'm sure they probably want to hire everyone. Let's get them in, right? But
Yeah,
then
right.
something in my spirit, again, there's like this intuitive thing that I've had
Yep.
since I was a very young girl. There's some other things that I was intuitive about that I figured out. People call me Sherlock Holmes. That's my nickname because I will investigate and figure things out.
Love
Um,
that.
yeah, but okay, what am I telling you? Sherlock
Were
Holmes.
you were working? Where were you working?
Yes. And so I basically said no to all of them. I had applied for an office manager job with a holistic acupuncture doctor that did functional medicine. And this doctor had been in practice for 50 years. He, I think,
What?
was close to 80 at the time. And he had his own practice in Santa Monica. It was just him. So
Wow.
basically, he ended up hiring me. And what's crazy is growing up again, playing sports, I didn't really watch what I was eating. And because we're going from place to place in Kansas, I ate McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, Pizza Hut, and still, looked like you're in shape. So when I started,
RFK Jr. would be proud.
he'd be so proud. Yes. But it's like back then when you are running around all day long and your
Right.
metabolism is good, it's okay. It can work out for you. But when
Yeah.
I got to working with him at 21 years old, he completely flipped my world. It changed my diet, the way that I
Wow.
slept. I mean, because we would do blood work and figure out all these different things, and so that was actually the biggest blessing because I didn't plan. And I thought, oh, I'll work for him for maybe a year and then I'm moving home. Well, I ended up loving working there so much because I got to see his magic. And he had people come in with cancer, people that came in who had infertility and they said they'd never be pregnant, people that had smoked their whole life, and he would get them to stop smoking. He would get people to be able to get pregnant. People would
Wow.
not have cancer anymore. So I got to see the functional medicine side. I got to see how supplements and acupuncture and just changing your diet could change your life. So that was actually a blessing in disguise as well. And he also reminded me a lot of my grandfather, who was my mentor, coach, hero, best friend. So
Yeah.
I kind of basically moved out here and got someone that was very similar to my grandfather
In Santa Monica,
in Santa Monica on Wilshire
which is
Boulevard.
we've been my when we lived in Vegas. I said to my wife, we on my birthday we went over to Big Bear Resort or Lake, I guess, and stayed a night there. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
let's drive to L.A. I've never been there. And she's like, really? And I go, yeah. And I go, all right. So we drive over to L.A. and we went as far as Santa Monica, and
Okay.
we went out to the pier,
Yep.
parked, and saw the freak shows everywhere
Yep.
with our little girl in tow, our daughter, and we go
Her eyes
all
were
the way.
that big.
Yeah, we go all the way out to the restaurant at the end of the pier. It's a Mexican. Well, it used to be a Mexican restaurant. I
It
don't know
is
if it
still.
is.
Yep.
Is it?
Yep.
And we had dinner out. That's my experience. We'll say, and then we drove back to Vegas. But so you're doing this with this holistic doctor.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you work there as the office manager?
So that 1 year turned into 6 because I couldn't leave. So I started doing other things, but I enjoyed so much working with him and seeing him heal people. To me, he was
Yeah,
like another version of Jesus. I'm like, people
yeah,
come in here and they need healing, and he does it. And that to
yeah,
me was just so beautiful. So I wasn't making much money at all working there, but it was so rewarding and fulfilling.
yeah. So 6 years you're doing this in
Yes.
Santa Monica.
Yes.
And where did things go for you? Because like I read your bio and I'm like, what? She's been on all these television shows, NBC. What
Yeah.
was the show that you were on? I didn't catch that in your bio. What was the show you ended up being on NBC?
Okay, so there's a couple different ones. I think that
Oh,
one is yes. So that one was actually pertaining to catching Kelsey. So Travis Kelsey from the Chiefs,
yeah, yeah.
and it was like a bachelor show. So it was 50 girls, one tight end, and
Oh
we
my,
filmed that. It was 8 weeks, and I
wow,
actually ended up going to the final four on that one. So they flew my mom out from Kansas, and what's
what?
actually really cool is this is pre the super them winning the Super Bowls and pre Travis Kelsey and Jason Kelsey playing against each other in the Super
Oh,
Bowl. So
wow.
on that show, Donna Kelsey, his mom, she was there. Her and my mom got along really well. But also Jason Kelsey was there, and there was a football game, a flag football game, and Travis chose me on his team. So we played against Jason. So it was kind of this really funny thing because we won, and it was almost like the
Wow.
Super Bowl. Travis won over Jason. But yeah, so it was a super fun thing when they start
Wow.
winning because again, I'm a huge Chiefs fan. That's I've been that since basically I was born. So
Wow.
to be on there and be a part of that was like super cool, really fun, and I met some of my best girlfriends on there.
Do you know who Nick Lowry is?
That sounds familiar.
He's in the Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame as the best kicker they've ever had on the team. Nick
Okay,
Nick the Kick. He's a good friend of mine actually.
love that.
Yeah.
My dad would
Um,
definitely know. My dad knows every
I'm
single
sure.
player. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, Nick, this I forget. There's so many details, but yeah, he was there a while. It's been a while, so
Yeah.
um, talk about you do this thing for 6 years. Where did things go from there? I think that's where we were when I derailed the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So that was one thing that I was doing because I played sports my whole life. It felt like the natural thing to do would be become a personal trainer. So I right away
uh,
got my personal training and group fitness training certifications. I started training people on the beach in Santa Monica, very close to where you went to the Santa Monica Pier. So that's
wow.
something I was also doing on the side. And typically in California, you don't have one job, you have 10. So you do lots
What?
of different things, yeah, to make it work and
Mm,
to really, if you're coming out here when you're young, to make it work, to be able to pay the rent, just the high prices of everything. I think I remember going from having a house, like a 3-bedroom house in Kansas that with my roommates that I played basketball with, and I think our rent was $600 or something total for all of
oh
us.
my gosh.
And then out here, it's like $1,300 per person on the low end when you first move out here. So, yeah,
Wow.
you had to find things to make it work. You had to get very gritty and have a lot of resilience, and you get told no a lot out here, where you're kind of used to if you come from a small town. Usually, you do well, you get the things that you want.
Yeah.
Things are a little
Yeah.
bit easier. So yeah, you have to really work hard and do everything that you can to make it. And there was so many times where I thought I was going to move back to Kansas, which would have been fine, right? At the time, you think you'd be a huge failure, but then I'm like, "Ah, that'd be super cool. I miss my family." So I was
Yeah.
doing a few different things. I was doing the training, and then eventually I became a project manager for a company called F45, and they were born in Australia and they had not come to the US yet. So they were looking for someone to help them bring F45 to the US. So I ended up doing that. Our friends in Salina, Ohio opened the first F45.
That's
And
where
then,
I'm from.
oh, really?
Well, not Salina, but that's crazy you just said that because we live in Salina, Texas, and
Okay.
now like that's
Okay.
literally where my house is, and like Salina, Ohio is right outside of Lima, Ohio, which
Okay.
is where I grew up in that area. So yeah, that's crazy.
I
that you
love
just
that.
said.
Well, I was in Salina, Kansas a week and a half ago with my family.
That's crazy. Wow.
um, but yeah, so they did that. And then what we decided to do to sell franchises was to do a big event. So that's kind of also my background. So we've been there. I've always been hosting events and retreats and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's do it big. Let's do a big event at the US Open of Surf in Huntington Beach, California. Let's get 10,000 people there and
Wow.
let's sell a bunch of franchises. So by this time, we had opened an F45 in Henderson, Nevada. And so I started flying athletes and influencers into Henderson for them to check out the studio, to check out the fun fitness tests and things that we do. And then we did the big event in Huntington, and we had all the athletes come through. I think we had like $100,000 prize for the winner. So it'd be this,
Wow.
imagine like a train boxcar rig turned into a fitness test, and there's 10 exercises, and you go through it as fast as you can.
Wow.
And then yeah, so you have a winner at the end. But we sold a ton of franchises, and then in that I realized, oh, I've been a trainer for a long time. I'm in business. Maybe I should open some F45s myself. So I ended up opening one in Venice Beach, California, and the Pacific Palisades.
Wow.
And so, yep, so had those studios for a few years, and then ended up selling my ownership to my partners to then go out fully on my own. And that's when, since then I've been full time with wellness retreats and retreat coaching.
Good Lord, have mercy. You are a busy. I'm getting tired just listening to like all the stuff you do. I'm kidding. So
it,
so
it wears me
you
out too.
yeah, I'm sure it does. So you so you're I mean you're a hustler. You hustle.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I love that about you. What are some of the things, I love asking about imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Because I
Mhm.
think, most people are walking around telling themselves a story about themselves and the world and life.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that a lot of those stories they're telling themselves, like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about,
Mhm.
they are holding them back from taking chances, taking risks.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're not, you're you're you certainly are not afraid to take a chance, it seems.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, the imposter syndrome that you've experienced, how you've overcome it. I
Mhm.
love the I am statements on the wall. I have a book that I wrote about that actually.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
So I just talk about how you've overcome that imposter syndrome,
Yeah. Well, this is a great question. And I would say, you said it seems like I'm not afraid. I'm definitely afraid. And I
right?
definitely have imposter syndrome. But I'll say something that changed my life. The first retreat I ever attended, it's probably 12, 14 years ago, was in Big Sur, California. And there was 20 of us. We were all complete strangers. None of us knew each other. And after spending 24 hours together, one of our first exercises was to go up to each, so the other 19 people, and they would say one word that they think of when they think of you or the experience of you, and then you do the same. And I don't know what the odds of this are, but all 19 people said the same word. And there's a lot of words that people could choose, right, to
Oh
describe
my,
someone, all 19. And if that's not a like, hey, pay attention, listen, right? But as each of them said that word, I kept thinking, wow, I'm such a fraud. Well, fake it till you make it. Wow, I'm really good at pretending, right? The whole imposter syndrome, like, this can't
yeah.
be. This isn't who I am. Why would they all think this? And that word was confident. The word was confident. And I'm like, I am not confident. I'm scared. My armpits are sweating. Like, I am nervous. What, like, this, how, like, why would these people think this?
Oh
So
my
then,
gosh.
fast forward, probably 6 years after that, I'm at an event, a conference, and I'm paired up with 6 women. That one was men and women. And our exercise is to go around, do a 1-minute talk. It could be anything, inspirational talk, just share about your life, whatever. And then everyone's going to write down one word that they think of when they think of you after your talk. All of those women wrote confident. And I'm like, okay, we're done here. This is like, I'm getting punked. Someone is like tricking me, messing with me. How did they know that this happened to me before? This is
Wow.
wild. So I told them, and I was like, I'm not confident. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I can barely do it right. You know, all these things. And one woman said, this is what changed my life. When are you going to start believing that you are the way that you show up in the world? When
Yep.
are you going to start believing that you are the way that you show up in the world to others? Because how you show up to others is how they experience you. And that's it, right? Like if you show up late everywhere, but you don't think you're late, but everyone experiences you as that way, you're late, right?
That's
So
right.
it's like you might want to pay attention. So, anyways, from that moment
Yeah.
on, I realized, I realized you can be afraid, you can be scared, you can be nervous, but when you do it anyway, that is confidence, right?
Yep.
When you are nervous to show up on the stage, when you're nervous to show up on the live or on Instagram or to a date or anything, right? But you do it anyways, like you don't let fear actually stop you. And I remember this too. And there was this quote, of course, I would choose this quote to have on my desk that I read every single day. And I thought that I got it. I thought that I got it, which was everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. But I didn't get it because in the past, when anything was fearful, I would turn around, reverse, back it up, and I was out of there. I'm like, I am
Yep.
not going that way, right? But once I got this whole thing about confidence and showing up, then when I would see fear, I saw it as my North Star saying, hey, everything you wanted is on the other side. Come this way. And so I started following the fear and making fear my friend. And
Yeah.
then the most important thing is I just showed up, right? And it wasn't about being perfect. It's like the done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Just show up. Just show up.
Correct.
Yeah.
I love that. I think, I mean, I know some amazing people, including you now. But I look at, I've heard Grant Cardone, who's a billionaire. I've heard him say it. Like
Mhm.
it's always funny. He's like, man, I wake up scared every day of my life. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, what? But
Yes.
that's the difference is people are, um, people who make it, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but people that win more in life than the people sitting on the sidelines judging the winners.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
those people are afraid. You're afraid.
Yeah.
We're afraid. We are
Yeah.
afraid, but we do it anyway.
Yeah. Right? Because you want to meet your edge, right? If I'm not doing things that are helping me meet my edge, then I'm not having growth spurts. I'm not growing and
Right.
expanding. Like this has to stretch me
Yeah.
for me to be able to go to the next level. So
Yep.
knowing that I want to constantly be growing and expanding, I have to
Yep.
meet some edges. And if I'm all of a sudden not afraid and I'm not anxious to do these things, then for me it means I don't care, because when I get anxious and nervous, I'm like, oh, I really care about this. I really want to do a good job and show
Yeah.
up for this person or opportunity. And so for me, if I started not caring and it was just easy, I would have to take a pause and check in with myself on where I was really at. And if I was putting myself in the rooms that are going to expand me. And that's why I always like to be in the rooms with the people that are so much smarter than me and have those conversations, because I really want to, every single day, I want to grow and be better.
I'm so impressed with you. By the way, thank you to my friends on X. We have over 2,400 people watching us live right now on
Oh,
X.
I love that. I
It's
love that.
amazing.
Hi, everyone.
Make sure you give Lauren a follow and follow me while you're at it. But Lauren, what is it that you know? I think I talk a lot about this too. You have to have something that gets you out of bed in the morning.
Mm,
Um, some, there's the purpose driven life. A lot of people, talk about purpose, purpose, purpose.
mhm,
Um, I think it's probably more than just purpose.
Mm.
What is it for you? What is it that makes you get up and go in the mornings?
Yeah. There's a couple things. So you had mentioned, what show were you on? The first show that I was on in 2014, I believe, was a show where I ended up living in a cave for 60 days. And talk
Good
about
God.
lessons. Talk about lessons.
What?
Yes. And what's funny about that whole thing is how I ended up on that show is someone from my co-ed softball team. So I mentioned football, but after that I joined a softball league, a basketball league, a volleyball league. Anyways, so someone from my co-ed softball league anonymously submitted me to this show saying that Lauren needed somewhere to unleash her inner competitive nature, not on the co-ed softball team. So, to this day, that is still an anonymous person. I do not actually know who submitted me for this show. And I think because it ended up being so intense and I came back emaciated, I'd lost 30 pounds, I looked like a corpse, and it took me a year to recover. So whoever that was like, oh, I don't think I realized what was going to happen there. So they have not admitted it. I have my suspicions on who potentially. But anyways, that landed me in the cave. And I feel like sometimes you have to go into a dark cave, literally, physically, metaphorically, in your life to see the light again and to learn the things that you need to learn. And a couple of those things, one that was massive because we were actually stripped of everything that we own before and blindfolded. And then we entered this cave and
Wait, wait,
spent
wait, 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 wait. Hang on. Was this a cave like tucked in the side of a mountain off the Santa Monica Pier? Was it a cave? What was it in ancient China?
yeah.
Uh, you know,
I definitely would have preferred those options, to be honest, because
what?
it was actually in a cow pasture in the middle of Louisiana.
Are you
So
serious?
yeah, because they built a cave, and it ended up, they said it was called the Fierce Competitor, but it ended up being called Opposite Worlds. So it was a huge social experiment where half of us were living in the past, which was the cave, the other half were living in the future, and then the present is where we would come out and have these worldly duel of destinies where you would fight for your destiny and fight for your world. So the people in the future lived in a very futuristic house that they could talk to and order filet mignon and raspberries and
What?
champagne and massages and take baths and all these amazing things. And
Uh,
yet we were in this cave, but here's the kicker. We were separated by a glass wall. So we could see everything that they had that
oh
we
my.
didn't. And of course, they could see everything, but that didn't really bother them seeing everything over there. We were in the dirt, like in this cave that honestly would have been better if it was a real cave that we could have entered and exited when we wanted to, but we were actually locked in there whenever we weren't filming. So
Oh,
it was pretty bizarre to go from like a very active person to like a just sitting person for that long of a time. And you didn't know what time
ah,
it was, what day it was. When it got
what?
light, you would wake up. When it got dark, you went to sleep. It was very primal. I will say it was very primal. But
Wow.
yeah, we were stripped of all things. They, took our suitcases and phones and they took everything and they actually blindfolded us and changed us into outfits that were like cave outfits. I think I was
Oh
wearing
my
some squirrel skin as
God.
a top. Um,
What?
yes. Yes.
Oh my God.
It was bizarre. I honestly thought we ended up on Naked and Afraid or like a Punked. I thought someone was punking me again. I'm like, what have I done?
Oh
Um,
my
but
God.
yeah, so that's what we happened. And so that first lesson that I got was we don't own anything in this life. It's all borrowed. Everything. My grandparents, my parents, my car, my clothes. It was just like when you're stripped of every worldly possession, you actually realize how quickly, in the blink of an eye, the snap of the finger, those things can be taken away. And
Yeah.
people in California experienced that recently with the fires, floods, all of these. There's
Yeah.
natural disasters, but then also just, during 2020 and just loss in general, right? This is
Yeah.
happening all the
Yeah.
time. And so when I really got that, I thought about like, oh man, when I borrow things from people, I like to give them back in as good or better condition. Like if I can, if I stay at someone's place, I'll get a cleaner. If I, borrow their car, get it cleaned. If I borrow their clothes, I'm going to take them to the dry cleaners, things like that, where I'm like, well, what if I thought about that with my parents and my grandparents and my friends, like our relationships and the time, if I just thought this is all borrowed, it could be taken away in the blink of an eye, how would I treat it? How would I show up? And it also removes that whole, I own this. This is mine. And you're so worried and you clasp so tightly and don't want to lose anything, right? And it's just like,
Yeah.
I want to hold on to everything. But it's in that release that we can really receive, right? When you actually release, then go back to those hands from the beginning. When I release, I can actually receive. At the football as well. If my hands are open, it's going to be a lot better to catch.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot
That
of ways we could go with that.
makes you a way better receiver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You can just take that so many places. But the other thing in there, another vision, and this answers your question about what wakes me up in the morning. This lesson, this vision that I saw about outlets. So in the cave, there were 0 outlets, nothing that you could plug into. So if I just think about my room right now, my computer's plugged in, my phone's plugged in, my 3 fans. Yes, I call them my biggest fans, and I cannot sleep without them. I have to have the noise, all of that. I have lights plugged in. I have a straightener to do my hair. I have my little fireplace over here. We just imagine all of the things in your life that you plug into on a daily basis that you think you need to survive. Because quite literally, I would travel with my fan. I have a smaller fan. I would put it in my suitcase. I travel with it. I show up if I'm staying the night with someone with my fan in hand.
Wow.
I was like, I can't survive without my fan. I will not be able to. I won't be able to survive without my NutriBullet and my smoothie and my coffee in the morning. Right? We had none of that in the cave. No coffee.
You hold it. No coffee?
Fan. Oh, no coffee, no fan, no smoothie, no nourishment in general. I told you I lost 30 pounds. So I was like, wow, like we plug into so many things on a daily basis. But then it took me back to like when I was 21, also when I said I was spiraling and lost my identity, and I'm plugging into maybe relationship after relationship or alcohol or retail therapy. And sometimes for people, it's, sex, drugs, like all the things, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, wow, what are all of these things that we plug into literally and figuratively that for the most part only bring temporary pleasure? It's not long term. It's not that long-term sustainability gain that you're looking for. And so in this vision, I imagined myself unplugging from every external outlet that I had ever plugged into for this like temporary comfort, right? And I unplugged them all and I plugged them all in to me, my internal source.
Wow.
And in that moment, everything in my life actually made sense. It's like a movie played backwards to show me and connect all the dots. That's why that relationship failed. That's why you moved across the country. That's why that job didn't work out. That's why you lost $500,000 in that investment, right? That is why all of the things that we think we want so bad, again, that we're grasping and holding on to and trying to control the outcome. And it was like, no, like release, like all the answers that ever were or ever will be are within you right now. And what you need to do is get quiet and get still so you can hear. And that's what happened in the cave. I could hear because I was very still. I wasn't moving. I was very quiet. There wasn't a lot going on in there. And so for the first time in my life, I could really hear the answers that I was seeking. And I, in that moment, knew I want this for other people. I want them to be able to have this. And I don't know how I'm going to create this, but this needs to happen. And so in the cave, one of the girls who was in the cave is my best friend today. And go figure, we spent all that time together. But we also planned to do a bunch of unplugged things afterwards. So we planned to hike Kilimanjaro. And like, hey, we're not going to have our phones. We're just going to hike Kilimanjaro unplugged and be there and be present and be where our feet are. And she has a whole story of miraculous healing that happened to her while we were doing that. And so then what happened after that, I really, for the first year when I got back, I didn't even take my phone to meet people out. If they just weren't at the restaurant when they said they were going to be there, I'd wait a little bit and I'd leave, like, because they couldn't tell me they were going to be late. So I wasn't worried about when my phone was dying, like reaching for finding a charger really quickly. I just really didn't think about it. I left my phone
So,
everywhere.
hold it. That you quickly skated past the Kilimanjaro thing. Like
Okay.
what? What the
Yeah.
hell?
Well,
What?
we figured if we could live in a cave for 60 days, we could do anything. So we were thinking of all the things we wanted to do when we got out of there. That would be, and honestly, it was so much better. It was easier doing Kilimanjaro than living in the cave for 60 days.
Okay, so you climbed all the way to the top?
We made it to the top, and actually there was 300 people that started. There was only 3 of us friends, but 300 people that started at the same time. And it was my friend Jess and Sam, and we were the first 3 to every single stop. So basically, we wouldn't stop for lunch when everyone did, and we talked our guides into letting us keep going, because we would rather like get there and then relax and eat than like stop. So we were the first people, and we were also the first people to the summit on summit
Oh
day.
my
So we
God. Out of
started like,
wow.
yeah, out of 300. But our guide, so most people, which at this point in my life, I probably would have to take the oxygen too, but most people would take the oxygen because it is like 19,333 or 36 feet. But we were like, hey, we're doing pretty good. I don't think we want to do the oxygen. And we asked him if we could start a little bit. So that last day, you finish your other hike at like 4 p.m, eat dinner, take a nap. And then we started hiking for the summit at 10 p.m. So we hiked overnight from 10 p.m. So we got up there right before sunrise. We didn't
Wow.
want to be in like a line behind people or anything. So we're like, we'll start earlier. So we did that
Wow.
and we made it to the top. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not acting like this was easy. We weren't talking to each other at, the last part. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die. Like if I take one more step and I'm like, I should just sit down for a second, which they won't let you. You don't sit down because you don't get back up if you sit there and you don't have
Oh,
oxygen.
really?
Yeah, if you don't have oxygen and you just sit down up there and try to stay for an extended period, because once you sit down in that your body physically, it does not want to get back up. So we couldn't sit down, but I thought I'm at a snail's pace. We're just like one foot in front of the
Oh my
other. I'm like,
God.
and it's like that life lesson too of like, you'll eventually get to the destination if you just keep taking one step at a time, no matter how slow you're going, like just keep taking one step. And it was after the fact that I asked my friend Sam, I'm like, were you struggling? And she's like, oh, I thought I was going to die. I was like, okay, good. Like, at least we were like, both
You're
felt
like,
like
cause
we were going to die. Yeah, I wasn't alone. But we were so in that moment, like so low on oxygen, so exhausted, we couldn't even talk to each other. And we were right there, we were
oh
right
my
next to each
God.
other, but there was no words coming out. So it's like, you get to the top and I think we could maybe stay 20 minutes before they were like, you got to go. And we had these shirts we made that said, why not? So we like hold up our shirts, but all you can see is like our eyeballs. We're like, in all these, clothes and jackets and everything.
Oh my. Oh,
But
because it was cold.
it was cold. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I almost lost my big toe because of that. So,
What?
yep. They told me that I was going to have to actually get it removed, my big toe.
Have
Okay.
you ever thought about getting some sort of professional help?
I'm a crazy adventure junkie.
I
And I
love it.
think maybe I didn't get to get this all out when I lived in Kansas for 21 years. Maybe I was just like, the
Yeah.
sports didn't do it. It wasn't crazy enough for me.
Wow, that is unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really amazing. You were talking a little bit ago about you've got this ability in the cave. You learn to unplug
Hmm.
and I talk a lot about this. I've meditated every single day of my life for the last 22 years. It's a
Amazing.
non-negotiable. It's the first thing I do every morning.
Yeah.
And there's
Amazing.
this amazing book. I don't know, it sounds like you probably have read it, but maybe not. It's called Power versus Force.
I haven't.
And It's so good. It's all about kinesiology and I'm gonna give it a horrible summary, but he talks in the book about what you were just saying, and that is that um, universally, whenever we try to force
Mm-hmm.
anything,
Yeah.
we universally we're going to create resistance to that
Yeah.
thing, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
True power comes from surrender. Just surrender. Plan your plans, let God plan the results. You get people that are so like, I gotta have that, and they get that pit bull, and I've got that. Like,
Yeah.
no, I gotta have it. And but when I see that there's a lot of resistance, I just go, okay, God, this is yours. I surrender. I give up.
Yeah.
You win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
what you were kind of talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a massive posture of surrender for sure, because you don't know what's going to happen. But I love
Yeah.
what you were just saying, because I just was talking to a friend the other day, and this was pertaining to relationships. But I was saying to her, you can't force forever, right? Like if it's meant for you, it won't pass you by. And when you really surrender it and you don't try to control it, the right things will happen, right? And so,
Yeah.
just like not forcing what's not for you. And yeah, I think what you're just saying, and in all those cases, it is definitely a posture of surrender. And
Yeah.
answering your question on what wakes me up now, after that experience, I was actually on a run, unplugged, and I kind of thought back to that word unplugged, and my grandpa always would come up with different like acronyms and stuff. I think that's how I got through school, is memorizing all the stuff my grandpa would help me with. But I was like, what? How can I get people to wake up in the morning and really ditch their devices? Like right before they plug back into the world, how could I get them to plug into themselves first and really start focusing on their outlook in life versus all of the outlets in life? And I'm like, okay, well, I can't tell them to go live in a cave for 60 days or hike Kilimanjaro, which go do those things if you want to. But what is something that is sustainable, attainable, that they can do every single morning when they first wake up? And I used the word unplugged, and I came up with a 9-step practice to help people really disconnect or reconnect back to their true self. But again, focus on their outlook and not their outlets. And it's something that can be done in 9 minutes, or you can spend an hour, or if you have 4 hours, however long you want to spend on your morning routine. But it really is what gets me up in the morning, because I am so excited to get into that, because
Wow.
it includes connecting with source. It includes silence and gratitude and journaling and writing handwritten letters, because again, everything is unplugged. So even if you were going to do music, it would need to be a guitar that you're playing, right? Something
Yeah.
that you really don't have to plug into. But what I realized from that is when we fill ourselves up first with beautiful things and love and abundance, then we can serve from the overflow, because something's going to pour out of us, right? And we want that to be good stuff that's pouring out onto others. And we want to be so full that we're really serving from the overflow and not from a half empty tank or an empty tank. And what I see now is that people are more responsive. They respond with love versus react. And so if you wake up and you first grab your phone and see a text and maybe you forgot to do something, you'll react. Well, don't you know how busy I am and what's going on? Or you'll see an email and it'll, dysregulate your nervous system, or send you into a panic, or you'll have anxiety. But if you fill up first and you're reading and you're journaling and you're having your water and just different things, then when you go to respond to the same exact text or email, it's going to be with love, and it'll, say something more like, thank you for your patience and understanding. Thank you for
Yeah.
your grace and flexibility. And I'll get to that, So things like that. I find that it's something I'm so excited to wake up in the morning because of, oh, what am I going to get to read today? Or what, in my journaling, what's going to come through. And
Right.
usually that sets the tone for not just my day, but my week, my months, my year, my life. So
Yeah.
that is what wakes me up in the morning. And a lot of that does have to do with purpose, like you mentioned, being excited for things, but I'm literally excited for my morning routine.
I think I can tell that you are. I'm like that too. I don't know. I sip coffee in between my moments of meditation. I'll
Mhm.
meditate for a while, stop, take a big gulp of coffee, and then meditate a little more. And so I think that the other thing is, the relentless pursuit of um, perceived perfection. I
Mm,
think that there's a lot of people on this planet that, especially in the United States, but that want everybody else to believe they're perfect and they're okay,
mhm,
and they have, as a result, I think a lot of people have a problem with letting go of their errors, right? Because you were just
mhm.
talking about that.
Yep.
And so, one of the things I try to do with myself in meditation also is
Mhm.
give myself grace, like I
Yeah.
would a little 6-year-old child. Just give myself
Yeah.
some grace.
Yep.
Do you practice that? I feel like you probably do.
Well, this is a great question for me because I think I will always be a recovering perfectionist. And growing up, I think it probably has to do with maybe growing up in a small town, or my grandfather, just I wanted him to always be proud of me, and he was, right? It wasn't like he
Yeah, yeah,
ever said
yeah,
anything that wasn't, but because of that, and maybe it was just within me, I have no idea. But I had a 4.0 GPA. I got, in middle school I never got a B. In high school I never got a B. In college, magna cum laude, valedictorian, all the things, right? And
yeah,
playing sports, captain of the team. So I really got my validation and significance from achievement, from
yeah,
being really good at things, and quote unquote in my mind being perfect. Like I could not
yeah.
mess up. And for example, I would be up all night. So here's the thing. I was not a genius, okay? It was very hard for me to get the
Right.
4.0, get the A's and things. It did not come easy. I had to be studying in the books, all of those
Yep.
things.
Yeah.
And I would even sometimes stay up all night studying for something. And in the morning, if I did not feel ready for the test, I would cry. And sometimes I would stay home from school, like stay home sick from
Wow.
school because I didn't feel ready yet. And so that carried on with me after school, of still needing to be perfect and get everything right. And so on the outside, so for everybody on the outside looking in, Lauren's perfect. She's really good at everything. She always gets what she wants, like all that. Inside, I'm dying because it's such a struggle. It's so hard. And the reason it seems like I'm good at everything is because I only do the things I know I'm going to be good at. So I'm playing it safe, like very, very, very safe, right? So
Yep.
I would play the sports I knew I was good at. I would sign up for the classes I knew I was good at, things like that, where I could fulfill that. And so it wasn't until I had this realization that this is so not healthy, this is not good, that I actually started taking the bigger risks and failing. And I even gave myself, I thrive on challenges. So I gave myself a challenge to get rejected. I called it the rejection challenge. And I just started doing all these things where I felt like I would be rejected, whether it was talking to someone, sending an email, sending a proposal, things like that. And eventually I started to become numb to the no, where it didn't impact me as much. It didn't crush my soul. I didn't feel less than or unworthy. And it wasn't until I started taking the big risks that I started getting big rewards. Like really cool things started happening, and I started companies and sold companies and all of these things. It wasn't until I was really, really willing to risk it all and not be perfect. And I know we said earlier done is better than perfect, just show up. I really have to hold on to that. And I also really have to, like you said, give myself grace, because that little girl is still in there that needs everything to be perfect and need to achieve, to be seen, and all of that. And I have to be aware of that part of me. And when
Yeah.
she decides to show up, which she could show up today, right? There's, if I don't get enough sleep or do my morning routine or have my
Yeah.
nourishment, that part wants to show up and run the show. And I don't want that to prevent me from moving forward with something, submitting something, hitting send, do the post, all of that. I have to
Yeah.
remind myself constantly that in reality, we're never going to be perfect, and we are born worthy and deserving.
I'll never forget when I had I interviewed Grant Cardone the day after he finished Undercover Billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been a friend of mine since 2014. But I said to him, look, I had no idea he was doing Undercover Billionaire because he was literally undercover.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to him, I said, because I like to believe that it's never too late. Like you can always make a change.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, Grant, it's not, I mean, the reality is it's not too late. I mean, people maybe be 60, 70 years old. They can still, I mean, it's not too late, right? And he goes, I don't know, it might be. And I was
Mm.
like, shit, pardon my life. That's not what I wanted to hear, dude. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? It might
Yeah.
be, but if you think about it, like how many people, we all have an expiration date. We all have a
Mm-hmm.
day and we don't, not one of us knows what that day is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So why are you living your life like you have tomorrow? You may not, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how many, I mean, say
Mm.
yes to the
Yeah.
date, say yes to the start saying yes more.
Yeah.
My best friend in the world is Glenn Morshower, very, very famous actor. And I talked to him just right before our show. We were texting, and him and I have a thing where no matter what, if he calls me or I call him, and either one of us needs something from the other, the answer is yes, period. It
Mm.
doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
If he said,
Yeah.
Ken, I need you to get on a plane and fly to Vancouver and pick me up, yes, I'm on my way. Ken, I
Mm-hmm.
need you, whatever it is, and vice versa. And
Yeah.
I think too many people are living life like, man, I got another 6 months to figure this out. No, you don't.
Mm.
Get
Yeah.
busy,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I
Uh,
think there's two contradicting things, because so many people are telling you, you've got time. Don't worry.
I
You've got
know.
time. You'll figure. But then there's the quote, and I think it's Buddha. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it says, the problem is you think you have time.
Yes.
Right? The problem is you think you have time, and you
Yeah.
shelf things and you put them off, and for
Yeah.
someday, right? And someday might never come. And I just was telling a friend recently as well. I said, you know what? We've got to soak up our surroundings. Like, love where you
Yes.
live, like go for a walk around your neighborhood, love your coffee shop, work in your clubhouse, do these things, and like soak up everything, like every single
Everything.
minute that we're blessed to have, because we do not know what tomorrow is. So like you said, hit send, write the email, do the things, because I live by the quote, the problem is you think you have time.
I and so the bottom line is you may not.
And you may not.
I mean, well, you don't.
Yeah.
Period. Like you don't. Like
Yeah.
not one of us. Like we don't. Again,
Mm-hmm.
we live under this illusion
Yeah.
that here, this Tom Ginn said it. We live in a culture of illusions, and I think the biggest illusion that most people are living under is that I think since our spirit, our soul has been alive forever, it's been
Yeah.
around forever. I think that it affects our ego and makes our ego believe that this body
Yeah.
has forever, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we could go so far down that rabbit hole. You are delightful. I
Yeah.
absolutely have enjoyed the heck out of having you on the show today. Where is and I want to pop a banner up with your website address. What is your website address that people can connect with you?
So it is Lolly Coffee, Laleighh,
Hold it.
Leigh,
Leigh
coffee,
COFFEE
yeah,
.com.
.com. Yeah. So on there is all about our retreats that we have coming up. We have one in Spain, and then my retreat coaching, and then also coffee. That was a whole side note. Started a coffee company in honor of my grandfather. So Lolly is Lauren and Raleigh put together. And so that's why I just keep
Oh,
everything on one site. It makes it easy.
I love that. So
Yeah.
lollycoffee.com. I love that.
Yes.
So you have a coffee company too?
I do. I started that in 2021 in honor of my grandfather. He passed in 2021,
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
Parkinson's. So we donate to Parkinson's Foundation in his honor. And that's
Oh,
just like a labor of love. And he actually, what's really cool is he got to try the Raleigh roast before he passed. So I flew to Kansas as soon as we had the roast, and he taste tested it. So he said, hashtag Raleigh approved. And the funny part was,
wow.
on the bag, it said Raleigh roast. And I said, Gramps, do you notice anything on the bag? And mind you, he had, lost a lot of the
Yeah,
memory years
yeah.
before. But he was like, well, I'm Raleigh, but I don't know who roast is. So it was great because he always was so funny, and it was cool to see that humor. And this is just kind of a few months before he passed. So it was a really special moment. I have it filmed on tape, and my grandma's
Wow.
in the background as he's sipping it and liking it, being like, he loves it. He loves it.
Oh, that's adorable. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. So everybody go to lollycoffee.com, LALEIGH coffee.com. And is all your social media linked on there and all of
I think it
that?
is, but if not, my social, where I am the most is Instagram, which is Lauren L. Donahue. So at Lauren L. Donahue, and all the information for what we have going on is on there as well.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Lauren, you are amazing.
So,
I want to give you one last moment here before we end this.
okay.
Um, pretend for look, I've been homeless 4 times as an
Mm-hmm.
adult. Lived in my car. It's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had a significant amount of loss as an adult. And it's because I used to drink a lot. I've got 22 and a half years sober now. So,
Congrats.
but I think a lot about like, okay, if you, and this is for you, if you had the microphone and you were speaking to everybody on planet Earth, including my buddy Joachim, who lives in Hell. It's a city in Norway. It's called Hell. It's a town. It literally is. So let's say that you had the mic and you were speaking to everybody on planet Earth. Everybody could understand you
Mm,
all at the same time. What would you say to everyone listening right now, plus the 3,559 people on X watching right now? What would you say to everyone, all at the
mhm.
same time about how to live a better life and make a greater impact in the world?
Okay. I think it's about remembering. And since we have Lolly Coffee running along the bottom here, and I started that company in honor of my grandfather, and really anything that comes out of my mouth that sounds or resembles wisdom is from my grandfather. I am who I am because of him. And something that I really valued about him, probably not at the time, was how much he repeated himself. He said the same thing all the time, and what I realize now is that repetition gets results. Because if you repeat it enough, you'll actually get it in your system, change your behavior, and get a different result. So, one of the
Yeah.
things that he said to me all the time was, the cream always rises to the top.
Yep.
And funny enough, how many years later I would start a coffee company, and that whole is a whole different story. But I want everyone to remember the cream always rises to the top. And so what my grandpa meant when he would say that, because usually it's, I got broken up with or didn't get the job or whatever. And Lauren,
Yeah.
come here, sit down. Cream always rises to the top. And what that means is when you tell the truth, when you have integrity, when you do the right thing when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching, when you show up for people, when you are kind and have compassion, it might take you a lot longer to get to the top, right?
Yeah.
Than maybe people that lie, cheat, steal, right? They get up there, but it's not sustainable. They're not going to get to stay up there. They might get there for a moment. But if you do those things and you have patience and perseverance and all of that, you will eventually get to the top and you will stay there and you will have earned it and deserve it and all of that. So I would say, remember, the cream rises to the top. Never give up. Keep showing up one step at a time. You will eventually get there and it will all be worth it.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from her mouth. Lauren, you're amazing. Wow. Everybody go to, if you're listening on the podcast networks, go to lalleigh.com, LALEIGH.com, and follow Lauren on Instagram. Her MySpace is probably linked on there. I'm totally kidding.
Hilarious. I think we should go back to MySpace.
I know, right? I
There's
know.
actually, if you can imagine, you used to rank your friends on there. Like if one friend ticked you off, they got down to number 5. That would be
I know.
bizarre these
It's
days.
so crazy. Wow, how far we've come.
Yeah.
Everybody go over to lalleigh.com and order some coffee. I want to try this coffee. Hold it. Do you make K-cups?
We don't, which my dad keeps asking for. So we don't have K-cups, but we do have instant, and it's actually incredible because I'm
You
not
have
an instant
instant?
coffee, but we do have it in packages, and it's absolutely amazing. The thing about Lolly Coffee is everyone always talks about the taste. So whether it's our decaf, which usually you can't find a good tasting decaf, which we have, or instant coffee, which doesn't usually taste good, and it tastes amazing. So those are on there. There's a Bonnie brew, which is in honor of my grandmother. And for that one, we donate to American Red Cross. So each of them have a different charity attached to the bag. So yeah, hope you enjoy. And thanks for having me. This has been really beautiful. And I'm glad that we figured out the technology so we can make this happen.
I know. There was a little bit of panic up front, but we got it. We got
We
it.
stayed calm and
Everything's.
we fixed it. That's what happens. If
That's
you just
right.
remain calm and you're responsive and not reactive, you get results.
Amen. Amen. Lauren, thank you so, so, so much. And
Thank you.
everybody go follow her everywhere and sign up for all of her stuff, everything. And I have a sneaky suspicion that we're gonna there's more to come. I don't know
I
what
think so
that
too.
means, but so listen, everybody, please go follow Lauren and go to lallecoffee.com and buy some coffee. For the love of God, buy some coffee. So, Lauren, thank you so much. Stay with me. I'm going to wrap up the show, but I want to chat with you real quick. And
Awesome.
everybody, listen, thank you, everyone, for sharing this out. We have over 3,600 people right now watching live on X.
Hi,
And then
everyone. Thanks for listening.
it's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have some folks on Facebook and YouTube and everywhere. So thank you all so much. Have a blessed day. And Lauren, thank you. And we'll see you all later.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.